Hello everyone. If you are just starting out your aquascaping journey, or if you remember how you started it, you go online, you start reading stuff, and you run into a bunch of stuff that people state as facts, but they are actually myths. So we collected 21 of them, and I'm gonna go through all. We have actually collected these myths from you guys, from our community. You had the chance to post on our social media platforms, and also from our own staff based on their customer experience. We got through stuff that get asked regularly, and we tried to find all the misinformation that you can find online. Looking into the topic, we just realized that Logan Rando has done a very similar video not that long ago. Go check that out as well. It's very good. There are going to be some stuff that he mentioned and we're going to mention as well. But he's very funny, so that's why we wanted to mention this. So let's begin with plants get enough nutrients from fish. And I want to start here because I want to highlight that most of the stuff I'm going to go through today is in relation of aquascaping and planted aquariums. Now, plants do get enough nutrients from the fish if you only have a few very easy plants besides lots of fish. So if I talk about classic aquariums, 100 guppies and 2 pieces of anubias, that's perfectly enough. If we are talking about a planted aquarium and proper plant mass in an aquarium, then what your fish produce in waste that gets turned into nutrients, that's not going to be enough. It's highly recommended to use some kind of fertilizer as well. I actually want to connect these two. Betters need warm water, and normal room temperature aquarium must be heated for tropical fish. Yes and no. Betters need warmer water than what's perfectly ideal for a planted aquarium. We are chasing 21-22 degrees Celsius for a planted tank. That's what's best for your plants. That's too cold for a better. But when people say a better needs warm water, they think 28, 29, 30 degrees Celsius. If you want perfect conditions and you want to breed them, stuff like that, yes, but they're perfectly fine around 24, 25 degrees as well, which is still bearable for your plants. So if you want to combine the two worlds and you want a nice planted aquarium with a betta, then 24, 25. For the rest of tropical fish, well, not all of them, for most tropical fish, when you look online and you see the temperature requirement, again, you're gonna see high numbers. But those high numbers, 28, 29, 30 degrees, those are breeding conditions. Now, water temperature is not the reason why your neon tetras are not breeding in your tank. They need a lot of different things as well. But again, they are perfectly fine to live in 21, 22 degrees Celsius as well. It's not cold for them, it's just not their natural habitat and not their breeding condition. There's a big difference in those two. Fish are hungry because they always eat when I feed them. Not true. Fish gonna eat whenever they see food. That's true actually to most animals, not just fish, but still, they actually need a lot less food than what you think. Our main recommendation is feeding fish once a day, whatever they eat in about a minute from the surface of your tank. Obviously, if you have lots and lots of fish, then you can feed 2-3 times a day even, but very small amounts. They won't need a lot, they won't starve, they won't die. In nature, they can find food all the time themselves as well. Even if you're going for a holiday, if you're going away for 4 or 5 days, it's much better to not give them any food than getting the lady from the neighbor to come over and feed your fish, because she's gonna overfeed your fish, which is gonna result in lots of waste in the aquarium and lots of algae in the aquarium. And the fish are gonna be perfectly fine without any food whatsoever for 4 or 5 days. Easy plants don't need CO2. Well, depends on what you call easy. If I look at the factory labeling, as for example Tropica is doing that. Whenever you take off a plant off the shelf, it has easy, medium or advanced. It has green, yellow or red leaf on the packaging, showing you how easy it is to actually get the plant into a nice condition. With that, it's correct. Most of the green sign easy plants don't need CO2, but that's not that simple. You can call plants easy for maintenance. There are a lot of plants that are very easy to maintain, but they still need CO2 to survive. Or there are plants that easy in regard of that they can be very nicely kept in relatively hard water, so they don't need soft water, they don't need lots of light, but still they might need CO2. So it highly depends on what you call easy. And also even easy plants, from going back to the Tropica notes on the packaging, if I look at them as easy in that regard, even those benefit from having CO2. So if you add CO2 to your tank, every plant has a simple way of living and using nutrients and using the light they get. There are no drawbacks of adding CO2. There is such a thing as matured water, established water, which is full of bacteria. It's true, your water gets filled with bacteria as your tank is running for long. There's just no benefit of saving that water. What you need to save is your beneficial bacteria in your filtration. So what we recommend, you save just 1 bucket of your aquarium water from the running tank, put your filter on that to run throughout the whole rebuilding process. It doesn't matter if it's 3 hours or 3 months. It can be whatever you need on time to get the tank ready. Just have that old cycled water running with your filter. Build a new escape, fill it up with new water, fresh water, and just pop your filter back on it. What's going to get you around ammonia spikes and what's going to help you in the first few months where algae is unavoidable, but it's going to be much less if you do this, is the actual bacteria that lives in your filter, that lives on the biological filter media that you have in your filter. Filtration is for cleaning the water in a sense of getting rid of physical stuff that's in the water. That's not true. Filtration is mainly to keep the tank in balance and cleaning the water of any excess waste. That's not definitely physical waste. Obviously, we want to filter that out as well, but if you look at our filter recommendation videos, we have a bunch of them, you're gonna see that we just keep the pre-filter on any filter. That's basically a thin layer of sponge. That's your physical filtration. That's mechanical filtration. That's gonna get rid of all the small debris that's in your tank. Other than that, all our filters are filled with biological media like Secam Matrix, and then we have chemical filtration like Secam Purigen. Now, biological media, that's the biggest part. That's the home of your beneficial bacteria. That's actually gonna clear your water from anything toxic. It's gonna get rid of your ammonia, it's gonna get rid of your nitrates. That's why your tank is gonna live long. That's what keeps it in balance, and that's what gives you room for error. That's why we say the bigger the filter, the better. There's no such thing as overfiltration. And then the Purigen is just a final step of polishing your water. If you use wood that actually colors your water, then you can get rid of the coloration. But even if you don't have anything like that, you have just an Iwagumi with rocks, there's nothing coloring the water. Even that can be much clearer for your eyes if you use Purigen. Every planted aquarium requires a lot of maintenance. Depends on what you call a lot. In our world, tanks that require 3-4 hours a week are not that rare. You can build tanks like that when it's a very complex build, lots of stem plants that need to be trimmed every week, stuff like that. But you can easily build a very, very nice planted aquarium that just needs half an hour or an hour a week. My favorite example, one of the main reasons why I started loving Iwagumi back when I started aquascaping, is they require nothing except for water changes if you choose your plants correctly. To make red plants proper red, you need to dose lots of iron. Well, for some of them you do. But when you look online and you see aquariums that have very nice red colors in them with very nice red plants, I can assure you that most of those people don't dose any iron additionally to their normal fertilization routine. The redness of the plants depend on the amount of light they get, the nitrate levels, and slightly the iron levels. So the main thing is the light. The plant is trying to protect itself from the very strong light. That's why it turns red. Now, secondary is nitrate levels. If you can keep those low, then the red's gonna be brighter. Now, if you have strong light, you have low nitrates, your tank is in perfect balance, there is no algae issues, nothing, and you want just slightly more red, you can dose a bit of iron. But I think that kind of difference is only noticeable for the very picky-eyed people. Now, one of my favorites from the community, you need water to keep fish. If you want to keep them alive, then yeah. What works for one person will work for you. Yeah, it's a big problem, especially in our world today, online. Everyone can write whatever they want to, and it's very easy to get misinformed and also very easy to get misguided. And in our hobby, the biggest problem is that a lot of issues have a lot of different solutions, and there are a lot of very complex combination of environment and technical stuff and everything that makes something work in a certain scenario, and the same solution won't work in another scenario. Even within Green Aqua, we have different solutions for different problems based on our own experience. I have solved issues in a way that Balázs thinks it doesn't work because it didn't work for him. And the other way around, and it's not just the two of us that you see on the videos, it's a bunch of us, and we all have different experiences with different issues and different solutions. You need to buy aquarium, light and other equipment in shops, and then someone from our community goes into long details about how you can make everything for yourself. That's true for everything. You can build your own car. It just depends on if you have any knowledge about the car's mechanics and electronics and safety stuff and everything like that. Obviously, if you are determined enough and you have the necessary skills and tools, you can make whatever you need. But I think most people don't approach this from this aspect. A lot of people try to make their own lights from LED strips. You can do that. It's gonna light up your tank. Everything is gonna be visible in your aquarium, but you can easily end up with a light that's almost pitch dark for your plants. Because the light you give to your plants, it actually matters what kind of light it is. It has good spectrum, it has a good color rendering, stuff like that, that you have no idea what those are if you are just purchasing an LED strip. I've just seen a video where a guy actually split Bugatti, that Bugatti themselves told them that there is only 2 people in the world who can do it, and then they've done it in a garage. They just split it in 2 properly. You can do that, of course. Let's dive into topics that might give you a bit more hope and make you feel better. Myths go both ways. For example, you need very powerful lights for aquascaping. That's not true. You might get away with quite simple lights actually, if you choose your plants perfectly. Same goes for CO2. You don't necessarily need a CO2 system for an aquascape. If you do the whole tank in relation to your technical equipment. You do your fertilization based on what you have, you do the actual build based on what you have. The only part where I don't recommend skipping is filtration. Have a good filter. No matter how complicated the rest of your system is, try to go a bit overboard. Definitely more than what the factory recommendation is on any kind of filter. You're gonna need a bigger filter than what they tell you. But yeah, for lights, for CO2, you can easily get away with inexpensive, simple solutions if you choose the correct plants. Now here is one where I actually can't tell you if it's true or false. Midday siesta is good for your plants and it prevents algae. Now, the siesta is not your siesta, going home from work, having lunch and then going back to work like the Italians do and the Spanish, and something that I would love to do, but we don't have this in Hungary. But it's for your plants. A lot of people think that you run your lights in the morning, then have dark period, then you run your lights in the afternoon, and then obviously dark during the night. What we recommend is having one light period during the day. So have those 7 hours chosen, and then it doesn't matter if it's from the morning till the afternoon or from the afternoon till the evening. I always say that if you are home in the evening, like most people are, run your lights from 3 p.m. to 10 p.m. That's 7 hours and you can actually enjoy your aquarium. It doesn't matter if it's bright outside or not. It has no connection to your tank. But a lot of people do the siesta. Both systems work. We believe in one period, but it doesn't mean that the other is not good for your tank. The reason why we believe in the one photo period per day is that siesta doesn't exist in nature. Sun comes up, goes down, that's it. There's no midday break for the plants. And also plants are very similar to us in how they behave. So when they wake up, they start their photosynthesis period. They do it, they get tired, they go to sleep. It's a bit exaggerated, of course, but that's the basic thing. It doesn't do anything good for you when you go to a midday sleep. You might feel good for a small nap, but I don't know about you, when I wake up from those, I'm just done for the day and can't do anything else. So same for the plants. They just do their daily routine in one. There's no splitting in nature. Sunlight automatically causes algae. If it's direct sunlight, then in most cases, yes, it highly depends on the volume. So the bigger the tank, the less of a problem this is. But for most cases, direct sunlight is a problem. My favorite example of this is our old shop, where the entrance of the shop was a normal regular house door, but it was glass. And we had one of the plant holding tanks right behind it, just, I don't know, 2 meters behind the door. And every spring, the morning sun coming up hit the corner of the tank for just 5 minutes and for about 3 weeks. That was it for the whole year. But in those 3 weeks, that corner was full of algae. You could actually see the line where the door made the shadow on it. So yeah, direct sunlight is usually a big problem. If I reduce the light, then most of the algae is gonna go away on its own. Well, if it's a type of algae that has anything to do with light, then yes, mostly these are green algae, but there are quite a few algae that had nothing to do with light. And also, it depends on how much you have. If it's just a very small amount of algae, then yes, you can get rid of it by dropping light intensity or the photo period length. But in most cases, by the time you get to this solution, it's way too late, and just dropping the light won't help you in any way. You're gonna have to physically remove the algae yourself, help your aquarium with that, help your plants. They don't need to fight the algae. And lowering light in either intensity or time, it's going to help you prevent the algae coming back. Waiting for the algae to go away on its own, I'm not saying it can't happen, but your chances are not good. To find out if your algae has anything to do with light, then go check out our algae guide, because we talk about all this in detail. Okay, another one about fertilizers. We hear this quite a lot. I don't want to buy a liquid fertilizer because I have a substrate layer or I have root tabs. Well, the two things have nothing to do with each other. Most plants take nutrients both through their roots and through their leaves from the water column. But most of them take different types of nutrients, and actually the form of nutrients is different as well in a substrate than in the liquid fertilizer. There are some plants that only take up nutrients through their roots, and there are some that only take up nutrients through their leaves, but in general most plants take it both ways. I don't need a CO2 system because I have liquid CO2. Usually the way this comes up is customer pointing out a plant in the shop that they want that. I ask if they have CO2 because that plant requires CO2 dosage. Let's go with Hemianthus cuba, for example, very demanding on CO2. And the answer is yes, I dose it every day. And then we get to the point where I find out that it's liquid CO2, which is not existing. That's just something that they put on the bottles. It's marketing, and the fact that these solutions are carbon-based, it's very vague. It's not CO2. It's not the CO2 that plants need for photosynthesis. It is a carbon source, which is very important for the plants to process nutrients. It can even switch certain fertilizers to other type of fertilizers. I don't want to go into the chemistry of this. It's very complicated and I can barely understand, and I'm not at the level to try to explain it. But it doesn't matter. So liquid CO2 is good for your plant. Take it as an addition to your fertilizing routine. Don't mix it up with CO2 dosage. We use liquid CO2 in all of our tanks in the gallery besides the pressurized CO2 system. You need RO water for good plant growth. Well, it's one of those again where it's not true, but it can be true. It's the same as with CO2 and with powerful lighting. If you choose your plants correctly, then you don't need RO water. Not all plants need soft water. Most plants grow better in soft water. Some plants even prefer harder water. If your tap water at home is really hard, like you get mineralization on your sink 2 days after cleaning it, then your water is too hard for plants. But in general, it's not true that for an aquascape you need soft water. I need an air pump because I dose CO2 to my tank. CO2 and oxygen, they coexist in water. Only because you have CO2, it doesn't kill your oxygen. I don't even know what the thinking is behind this, but we hear this quite a lot. Now, plants produce oxygen just like outside. Their photosynthesis is turning CO2 into oxygen, so you most likely don't need an air pump. Now, the other way around, during the night, when the photo period is off and the light is off, plants take up oxygen as well. So some people think that the plants will take so much oxygen that there's nothing left for their fish and the fish are going to suffocate. If that is happening, you are running on the balance. I've never seen this before. The plants won't take up that much oxygen that it causes any problems to your fish. No, you don't need an air pump in a planted aquarium. Now, what some people do is they refresh their water during the night, and when the CO2 is turned off, they run an air pump to provide more oxygen and run out some of the leftover CO2. And actually, this is the reason why you should never run an air pump throughout the time period where you have CO2 running. The bubbles from the air pump going up to your water surface and just popping, those are going to run out a bunch of the CO2 that you just dissolved into your water through a lot of effort. My plant is melting, so it must be dying. It's not true. Most of the plants you buy are coming from immersed nursing. So they have actually been propagated in dry, well, very humid, but not underwater environments. It's easier to grow them this way, there's no risk of algae growing on them, etc. There are a bunch of reasons. We actually have a very good video about how Tropica makes their plants. Go check that out if you're interested in this topic. But yeah, plants get to you in their above water or immersed form. You put them underwater, and then it depends on the type of plant how they're gonna behave. For example, most carpeting plants, they're actually gonna switch leaves. At this point, the plant is actually not melting. What we call melting is a real issue, but that really looks like something melting. I can't really explain it any other way, but the leaves are falling apart and getting jelly-like. That's not a leaf change. A leaf change is the leaf getting a bit yellowish, slowly dying off and then disappearing. But again, usually new leaves are growing faster than this. My favorite way of checking if this is actually going on is putting a few pieces of my carpeting plants right next to the glass, preferably on a side glass, not the front, because you don't want to see that, it's not nice. So I can see root development. This way I can check on my plant. Basically, you're gonna see daily changes on how it looks, and this can get you assured that there's nothing wrong with your plant. Other plants, for example, Rotala species or Ludwigia species, most stem plants, they switch their leaf type from that point where you planted them. So you plant a piece of Rotala this high, and below this you're gonna see the immersed leaves, which are usually rounded and quite simple green colors. And from this point up, as it starts to grow underwater, you're gonna see the long thin leaves and the reddish colors coming on that the Rotala is. We know most of them have some kind of color, and all of them have different leaf sizes and shapes in their immersed and submersed forms. You can't keep the really nice shrimps in a planted aquarium. That's something that was really true when I started out aquascaping. I don't even know, what, 12, 13 years ago? And it's completely untrue by now. I remember back then, I really liked the Caridina species. They were quite rare, like CRS and Taiwan bee shrimps. They were quite rare, quite expensive, and basically the only thing they tolerated was water. Nothing else. No fertilizers, no soil, no water changes. You couldn't do anything around them to keep them alive. Throughout the years, these have been bred more and more, and they have been accustomed to fertilizers, to frequent water changes, all the stuff we do and we need for planted aquariums. So that was it for today. Please let me know in the comments what's your favorite myth, what is something we missed out on, what is your favorite misunderstanding or misconception about aquascaping, and see you next time. Goodbye.